All right, I think we'll get going. Well, welcome everyone. Glad to have you. We've got a good group here and some good content to cover related to NERC CIP and how to solve some of the challenges that you may be facing in your organization. Just as a note, we're starting a series of webinars and podcasts that we're going to be able to bring insight into how to solve challenging problems with respect to NERC CIP concepts. And we're using this concept of the CIP Drip today. And I think hopefully everyone will be able to kind of understand and the concepts will resonate with folks today. I'm Brent Castanetto. I'm one of the co-founders here at NovaSync. I've been in the NERC CIP industry since 2010. I was spent 6.5 years as the WEC CIP audit team manager. Worked as a consultant for a number of years after that. And then Jared Shakespeare and I founded NovaSync in 2020 and have been solving compliance issues specifically around the NERC CIP space since that time. As a note, we do have a chat feature and Nick is monitoring the chat. So if you have questions or you want to talk further about a specific issue, please feel free to use the chat and we'll try and get you an answer later today. I've been lucky, like I said, I've spent a lot of time in industry and worked with a lot of good people who are experts in this field. And really what that's led to is a broad understanding of the NERC CIP concepts and how they work together and how to best not only accommodate the requests from audit cores or other folks, whether they're internal or external, but how to demonstrate compliance and how to automate using the tools that we have in place. And I really think that lends itself to the expertise that we bring to the table from NovaSync. So today, we are going to cover a couple of cool topics. So we're going to answer the question, what is the CIP Drip, which I think several of you are probably asking. Why does the CIP Drip even matter? How to identify and stop CIP Drips and specific examples and scenarios that include CIP Drips. And we want to introduce this concept using framing it up by building a house. So if you've built a house, lived in a house, rented a house, you know that a house requires maintenance. There's a lot of things that, from an upkeep perspective, that are required to happen. Flip over to my side here. So building a NERC CIP compliance house, you know, and to understand this historically, I think we have to go back to the initiation of NERC CIP standards. When these came in 2009, 2010, we were all new. The entire industry didn't fully understand or recognize the challenges with NERC CIP. And I think everyone in this room can probably speak to that. When you came into it new, or you've been in the NERC CIP space since that time, since its inception, man, there were a lot of violations early on, and big ones, right? Where people completely failed to even identify BES assets or facilities that were in scope, or failed to identify and capture things from a patch perspective or change management on devices. I think we've solved those issues over time. We've done a good job in industry of identifying those problems, these big problems, and shoring up the foundation from a house perspective. But as we all know, structures, they need maintenance. Any structure, whether it's a home or your NERC CIP compliance program, you need to maintain it. Because over time, things tend to leak, right? Whether it's a plumbing leak or your HVAC doesn't work or your water heater goes out, all of these things can cause issues if left unresolved. And I think of the concept of, you know, the Grand Canyon, right? That started out as just drips of water that slowly over time and with wind obviously eroded into what we see today, if you've ever had a chance to be there. You know, so little leaks can lead to big things and big problems over time if left unattended. And so I like to think about that in the accumulation of all the work that we've done to get to this point within our programs, within our CIP houses, from a maintenance perspective. If we're not maintaining it, if we're not being proactive, we're gonna find ourselves with struggles. So why do these CIP drips or these leaks matter, right? Well, I mentioned, you know, HVAC failure, or your roofing is having problems, needs to be replaced, or plumbing issues. You know, what were the quality of the components you used? And typically we use you know, home inspectors to come assess and evaluate the effectiveness of our home. And they'll look from top to bottom, right? From foundation and go to the roof and everything in between. And they're looking to identify potential gaps, issues, challenges, and so you're aware and can resolve those issues. And when I overlay this with the NERC concepts, I think of being proactive. going out and monitoring, actively monitoring for these leaks or these challenges that you may uncover. What about discovery? How do we discover these issues? Are we just waiting, like I've done so many times, where if I've had a leak in my home and I wait until the carpet's wet before I even am able to identify the issue? You know, I could have identified that earlier if I'd had the right monitoring equipment in place. If we don't do these things, you know, the real reason this matters, and we're supposed to resolve these issues and be proactive and go out and discover, there's some risks associated with it, not only reputationally, but I think of both security and reliability risks that we present ourselves with if we don't resolve these issues. And that can run the gamut from your personnel and access management to patch and change management and everything in between. If we aren't actively looking to resolve these issues, we may find ourselves with a significant number of drips. So how do we identify these things? And, you know, we created this image. I love this book, right? And this will be on bookshelves later this year. No, it's not, obviously. But, you know, thinking about, there's no silver bullet or book that tells us exactly what we do to avoid CIP leaks, right? That doesn't exist. I wish it did. But we're all actively working or running our NERC CIP programs. And yes, we may have internal controls, and yes, we may have a risk register that helps us understand and elevate those risks and make folks aware inside our organization that, hey, we have these risks. But is that real issue resolution, or is that just issue identification? So I propose a thought here. I think we don't actively hunt for leaks in our homes the same way we ought to in a NERC CIP space. I mean, I know I don't. I'm a homeowner and have been for a number of years, and have been presented with all the unique challenges that come along with it. And I typically wait until it becomes a real bad thing before I resolve it, right? And I think there's a better way to do it. We can be more proactive. And to do that and to really frame that up today, we're going to focus on 3 places to start our proactive journey. And that's our people, our process, and our technology. Let's talk about the people. People are a significant challenge. Everybody's unique, right? We're all individuals, and we bring our concept of what we know and understand to be correct to the table every time. And when I think about people and building a home, you know, there's very different scenarios in your entity, as there is in building a home in Florida versus I live in Utah. You know, we've got a team member, Nick, who lives in Florida. I live in Utah. Very different circumstances. Here in Utah, we're worried about our thaw-freeze cycles, and so our foundations have to be built differently. We also have a lot of snow, and if you have shade in a snowy area that stacks up on your roof, you have to do something to mitigate that, like putting heated wire up on the roof and in your gutters so that your stuff doesn't freeze. In Florida, we're dealing with a different set of issues. We don't need the heat tape necessarily on our roof or in our gutters, but we certainly need to make sure our shingles can handle high velocity winds, because those are damaging. And so different set of tools, different set of people that work within these same concepts, but they're doing different work because of the nature of the entity. And it's no different with you. Your people are probably purpose driven to focus on whatever the cause is at your organization. And that can be different entity by entity. The bottom line is, we're going to have our external and internal people, whether we're using consultants or vendors to kind of work through it stuff, or our internal folks, our subject matter experts, our compliance teams. I think the bottom line is we must demand expertise from them. No different than with a home builder. You wouldn't hire a roofer to be your finished carpenter typically. I know there's some people that can do everything, but those are few and far between. So, a person that's building your foundation is probably not going to be your plumber or electrician. And so my thought is demand expertise from the people that you work with, not only internally, but externally. And that starts with training. Training our people is paramount, helping them understand not only the process and the tools that we use, the technology that we leverage, but the expectation that we have from our people needs to be well understood and trained so they're comfortable and competent in the role that they're playing inside your organization. The second pillar, I think, is process. So what does our process look like? How frequently are we evaluating these processes? A stale process, one that's not maintained, is not going to last long in the NERC CIP space. Think about how much change we've had since 2010. Think of how much change we've had since 2015 or 2016. It is significant, and it continues to change year over year as the industry implements new standards. So you can keep a process in place and you can kick the can down the road, but as we know, that process will often lead to failures. And we can look at that in the concept of a water heater that breaks down. If we're not updating or upgrading our water heater with relative occasion, maybe 7, 5, 10 years, depending on where you live and the softness or hardness of your water, you're probably going to have issues. And as a recovering auditor, I've seen this failure so many times, right? The process was written once and it's evaluated on some periodicity, maybe annually, but not really evaluated. I look at things like our incident response plan or recovery planning exercises that we do, and we were supposed to review these things every 15 calendar months, but are we really doing a thorough review and pairing that up against the tools and the people that we have in place? Not to mention processes can be siloed with complete divergence between IT and OT, where they're using two totally disparate tool sets and processes to accomplish the same goal. So I think process is paramount, and evaluating the effectiveness of our process is critically important to understanding the risks that we have. The third pillar, I think, is technology. And I think this is where most of our drips happen. Now, it's a given that the process and the people are overlays when it comes to technology, because technology is something we interact with and we're going to use. Most of the drips will happen here. So you think about things like undefined workflows, outdated tool sets. Did you have expertise when that tool was initially developed and deployed in your organization? Or are you 5 years down the road and not even using it because it's not relevant anymore and it kind of sits on the shelf and becomes shelfware? What about homegrown tools? Are you leveraging any homegrown tools that people inside the organization have developed and deployed, and are they even there to support it anymore? We've seen a lot of that over the years. Looking at refreshing our tool sets and evaluating new technology is so important, especially given if we think about the concept of our NERC CIP house. It was built 15 years ago, so it's pretty old. Have we evaluated our water heater, our HVAC system? Are we evaluating our plumbing? Do we have the right help, that we need today? There's so many different technological advances that have happened over the last 5 years with the integrations, the ability to integrate systems together and provide feature-rich reports that you need to be successful as a compliance organization. So don't wait on this, right? This is a great opportunity to look at technology. I don't know how many of you in your homes have a tankless water heater. I wish I had one, because I've had to replace several water heaters and I continue to go the cheap route. And in Utah, we have incredibly hard water, so it just beats up water heaters. So, taking advantage of opportunities to make big changes, I think, is important when warranted. Think about technology as being that centralized hub for all of our people, our process, and these technologies to kind of come together. I think that's important. When we lay that foundation of process, people, and technology, now I want to kind of pivot to specific examples or use cases of where we see CIP drips most common. And it starts with access management. So there's a reason the NERC CIP 4, R5, requirement 5, and requirement 6 to some extent are the most violated standards, right? There's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of moving people. So we have to revoke access within 24 hours, right? We all know that. Are we tracking things like CIP training in our personnel risk assessments, especially for our external parties like vendors? Vendors may make changes without notice to you. And how are you informed of those changes? There are tools out there that can help you, right? Instead, are we still using our calendar or Outlook reminders? If that's the case, we probably should at least talk further. We have some ideas on how to solve that. And I use the example of how NovaSync has solved the quarterly review process, right? This has traditionally been a stare and compare, where I get an email from some leader inside the organization that says, these are the people that have authorization records, and I'm supposed to, as a manager or CIP SME, go and compare the authorization records against the accounts that I have on the boxes. Well, that data is all pulled from tools. So whether we're connecting with an identity and access management tool on one end and a baseline monitoring tool on the other, we can now compare that data, and give you a report every single day that shows if there are any anomalies. thereby kind of saving time, effort, and energy when it comes to that quarterly review process, that stare and compare. That needs to go away. That's a legacy event that we should probably automate. What about patch management? Well, there's a big reason this one's always top of mind on the most violated standards. It will continue to be because of the frequency. I have to, within 35 days, evaluate patch applicability, and then a second 35 days either apply the patch or mitigate. So how is your patch management solution or process bringing in new hardware and software? Do you have a good process for that? Not only a good process, do you have good tools that allow you to help you kind of decipher through the information? You know, there was a CVE that was put out just this week related to Cisco and their zero-day vulnerability that exists on their email gateway system. We see this stuff all the time happening in real time, and we are at risk. Why do we then rely on manual processes to accommodate the workflows that we've developed? Or is there a better way? You know, you look at what NovaSync's been able to do with patch aggregation tools like FoxGuard, Flexera, WSUS, SECM. We're able to bring that data in, start workflows so that your users have all the information they need in a single pane of glass to go and do the work that they need to do that's critically important. And the last example of CIP drips I'll use today is our change management window, right? We look at change management in CIP 10R1, and I ask myself often this question: how comprehensive is your security controls testing for CIP 5 and 7? Because your people have limited amount of hours that they can do this work in a given day. How much lip service are they paying? Or is it truly a comprehensive evaluation of the potential security risks that this patch may cause as a result of applying it in a production environment? Are we really evaluating the risk of impact and associated to those changes? Are we really testing those security controls as thoroughly as we should? I mean, in the early days of NERC CIP, we had this language in there that was great. It had the language, I think it was significant change. That no longer exists. That's not in there. Any change related to it, if it's applicable to our system, needs to be addressed. It doesn't matter the significance of the change. So we can't dodge this requirement by using that language. I'll harken back to the calendar outlooks or calendar reminders or events or Outlook reminders. If you're still using that to handle and address your change management, you may want to have a conversation with us. So our change management workflow gives all the appropriate steps, including true evaluation and testing of security controls required by CIP 5 and 7. So you're not just paying it lip service anymore. You're doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do from a reliability and security perspective. So what are some strategies to fix these CIP drips? And as I mentioned, this is an entire series. So we're going to dive into each of these areas that we talked about, both from the people, process, and technology to access, patch, and change management, because those are typically the pinch points we see in all the organizations we work with. I think our strategies for fixing these are going to depend on your entity. But the bottom line is prioritizing and focusing on the issues you find one thing at a time. We're not going to try and boil the ocean here and rebuild our entire house. That doesn't work. But we can fix, we can monitor, and we can maintain over time. And we can get better and improve our process and help our people improve by helping them understand the technology that we're leveraging, by defining the process using the technology that we're leveraging, and training our people to help them understand the risks that we're trying to solve for here in the NERC CIP space. You know, it's kind of it's an old kind of tired thing that you've probably heard before, a statement, but spending time working on the NERC CIP program versus working in the NERC CIP program. I know we all have to work in it. That's our day-to-day operation, but how much time can we spend taking a level up and working on the program to ensure that our house is sturdy, our compliance house is where it needs to be? To make sure that our pipes are none of them are freezing, to make sure our shingles are ready to withstand any of the storms that may come and hit us. You know, developing a team and refining a team of external and internal resources that are skilled and capable of doing the work, I think is really, really important. But focusing on one thing at a time. And maybe all you can fix today is your process. That's fine. Let's fix the process. And maybe we can adjust and we can work on tools and technology later, and we can focus on training our people at some point in time. but find one problem that you know is existing inside your organization and go to work on it. Spend some time working on the compliance program. So that's kind of the thought today. Again, we're going to dive into these things more deeply. We only had 30 minutes today, so we're going to dive into more detail as we work through the series. But just so everyone knows, NovaSync is a NERC CIP compliance GRC built by NERC CIP experts. Jared and I and our entire team have years of experience not only managing compliance for a regulated entity, but as auditors, as consultants. So we've seen what looks good, what works well, not only for internal leadership or internal assessments, but external facing from an audit perspective. We've been successful in deploying and saving our clients thousands of hours through our exports to the evidence request tool. All of our audit-ready reporting, our change management and patch management windows will save people time and money. Providing the ability to integrate with the tool sets that you currently have. We can leverage APIs or we can pick up flat files. It really doesn't matter. If the data can be exported from the system, we can get it and we can provide workflows for your people to do the work they need to do. So stay tuned for all the future webinar series that we have coming up. You can also use the link to our website there to book a time with me, whether you want to see a demo of NovaSync or you just want to talk about NERC CIP concepts. I'm here and available and would love to chat with you. So go out there, book time on the demo for a demo or some more information on what NovaSync is and who we're all about, because we really want to help. I think that's our deepest goal, is to help our clients and future clients understand the risk and make life easier for compliance teams by shoring up these compliance houses and identifying and preventing our leaky workflows or any of the CIP drips that we've talked about. So I'll stop there. If there's any questions in the chat, we can address those now. Nick, or if there's any follow-up, certainly we'll address those in the future series of on our discussion. Anything in the chat, Nick?
Nothing in the chat, but like Brent said, I think the biggest takeaway today is CIP drips are inevitable, and focusing on one item at a time is a good strategy. So if we were going to leave anyone with some thoughts over the winter break here, it's think of what some of those leaks could look like in your CIP program. Think of the one burning problem that you've been kicking the can down the road to solve and just haven't been able to lift your head up to work on your program instead of in it. All of those are great insights, and we're going to share a ton of detail and strategies on not only what we've seen as former NERC CIP auditors in the field, but also what we're seeing at NovaSync, working with redesigning workflows and re-architecting, systems engineering to make this stuff easier on yourself. I think that's the ultimate goal. So thanks, Brent, for sharing your insights today. Thanks, everyone, for dialing in. I see no other questions for now. So stay tuned for our series of webinars coming out all throughout 2026 to cover a variety of NERC CIP topics.
Perfect. Well, thanks, everyone. Appreciate the time. Have a happy holiday season, and we'll see you on the other side in 2026. Take care.